When multiplying integers, if the numbers have the same sign, your product will be positive. If the numbers have different signs, your product will be negative. Let's look at the positive examples first. If we have a positive number times a positive number, we get a positive number. So we could say 5 times 2 equals 10, right? Positive times positive equals positive. You write a second example on your paper. We could also have negative number times negative number. They have the same sign, and so our product will be positive. If we had negative 6 times negative 2, we're multiplying numbers with same sign, so our answer will be positive. We'll have a positive product. So 6 times 2 is 12. If the numbers have different signs, our product will be negative. So if we have a positive times a negative like positive 4 times negative 3, that's going to give you a negative product. So my answer will be negative, and then whatever 4 times 3 is. 4 times 3 is 12. So my answer will be negative 12. So give me a second example here and a second example on that line as well. We could also have a negative times a positive. A negative times a positive would give us a negative product. So something like negative 7 times positive 2. They have different signs, so my answer will be negative than whatever 7 times 2 is. That is 14. So negative 14. And give me a second example on that line. When multiplying more than two numbers, you'll need to be able to count the number of negatives that you have. So if there are an even number of negatives, you will have a positive product. In this expression, we have negative 2 times negative 3 times negative 1 times negative 1. So let's count. How many negatives do you see? I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 4 negatives. And if there are 4 negatives, of course 4 is even. So there's an even number of negatives. That means our product is going to be positive. So once you know the sign of your answer, then you can just ignore the signs and multiply the numbers. 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 1 is 6. So my product is just positive 6. If you have an odd number of negatives, your product will be negative. In this expression, we have negative 3 times 2 times negative 1 times negative 2. Count. How many negative signs do you see? I see 1, 2, 3. 3 negative signs, right? So since 3 is odd, that means I have an odd number of negatives. And if I have an odd number of negatives, my product will be negative, whatever the expression equals. So I have to multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. So my product is negative 12. Let's evaluate an expression. Remember, when you evaluate an expression, you need to set it up, plug in, and evaluate by following, I put OOO, order of operations. So first, set up. Wherever there's a variable, I'm going to put parentheses. So I'm just going to copy this expression. 2 plus 3, there's a variable, W, I'm just going to put parentheses. That's step 1, I set it up. Step 2, I plug in. Plug in what that variable is equal to. I'm told that W is equal to 4. So in this parenthesis, I'm going to put a negative 4. Now, number 3, I evaluate by following order of operations. I have addition and multiplication, right? 3 times negative 4. I have to do that first. So I'm just going to bring the 2 down. I'll have 2 plus whatever 3 times negative 4 is. They have different signs, right? 3 is positive, 4 is negative. So I know my answer, my product, is going to be negative whatever 3 times 4 is. 3 times 4 is 12. All right, so I'm left with 2 plus negative 12. At this point, I can use my add rules. They have different signs, so I'm going to subtract. 12 minus 2 is 10, and keep the big guy. The big guy here is negative, so my sum will be negative 10. Number 2, we have negative 4x minus 2, and x is equal to negative 2. So first, let's set it up. Copy the expression, and wherever you see a variable, in this case x, I'm going to put parentheses. So that's step 1, set it up. Step 2, plug in. The variable is equal to negative 2, so I'm going to plug that inside the parentheses. Finally, I'm going to evaluate by following order of operations. I have to multiply first. So negative 4 times negative 2, they have same sign, and if they have the same signs, my product will be positive. positive 8 because 4 times 2 is 8. I still need to subtract 2. 8 minus 2 I know is 6. Word problem number 1, you have this on your sheet. It says you play a game and you score negative 2 points on your first 3 turns. What is your score? Well, on your first 3 turns you have negative 2, then you get negative 2, then you get negative 2. So as you can see, I am repeatedly adding negative 2. And we know that repeated addition is simply multiplication, right? I see 3 negative 2's. I see 3 negative 2's. So I multiply 3 times negative 2. They have different signs, so my product will be negative. 2 times 3 I know is 6. So my score is negative 6 points. Word problem number 2, a football team loses 5 yards. If you lose 5 yards, that's negative 5 going backwards 5 yards. A football team loses 5 yards on each of 3 plays. What is the change in yardage after those 3 plays? So they lose 5, then they lose 5, then they lose 5 more. So I have 3 negative 5's, or negative 5 times 3. Different signs, product's negative. 5 times 3 I know is 15. So the change in yardage is negative 15 yards. They have lost 15 yards.